Right. Oh, I don't want to start getting stuck behind this motherfucker. Hello everyone, Abin. Welcome to a rather pleasant afternoon here in the northwest of England, which is rare at the minute, as it seems that we are in monsoon season. But anyway, I'm just out scrubbing in a brand new set of Michelin Pilot Road 4 trail tyres that I've fitted to my Triumph Tiger Explorer here. I finally killed off the original Metzler Tourance tyres on a 800-mile round trip around Scotland last week, and no, I didn't video it. Don't even get me started on why I didn't video it, so forget that. But I had a really good tour, and it reinforced to me what it is I like about this bike. And as it's now done 11,000 miles, which is the most I've done on any bike since the early 90s, when I used to ride as a motorcycle courier for a living, and never from brand new. So even though I have done a full review of my Triumph Tiger Explorer, which I did back in late 2015, early 2016, what I'd like to do from a long-term owner's perspective, what these things are like to live with. And after 11,000 miles and 2 years, I feel like I've got the authority to do that now with this bike. All that remains is where to start. Well, anyone who buys a 1200cc dual sport touring bike such as this has got to have in mind that they want to be doing some mileage on it. And that's where I'll start, because it really excels at doing the mileage, this bike. It's the comfiest bike I've ever ridden since probably about 2005, where I rented a 2004 Harley Road King and rode around for about 3,000 miles around Nevada, Arizona, California, a bit of Utah. And now that thing was basically like riding an easy chair. It was that comfortable, but compromised everywhere else, but comfort was its absolute strong point. Now this is no way, shape or form as comfy as a Harley Road King, but the upright seating position I find to be probably the best one if you're going to be doing serious touring for all-round use. The cruiser style with your feet forward and things like that, that's not conducive to good handling, whereas this neutral, upright, wide bars, seat at a nice neutral angle, you know, you can turn that into sporty or you can turn it into comfortable cruising. Love it. Seating position is great. Now this bike of mine I got with the extra comfort seat on it, and I've still got the original stock seat, which I've tried, and the comfort seat is by far and away more comfy, as you would expect. But there's a little beef with that, which I'll come to later. So yeah, the Tiger Explorer, this being a 2015 model, very, very comfy. And pretty much comfort for anyone ranging from 5'8", 5'9" to 6 foot upwards plus, because it is a big bike, 250 kilos or thereabouts wet. However, the seat height is actually quite manageable, because it's got really scalloped in, you can't really see it on here, but it's got really scalloped in tank and seat, so your legs aren't really wide apart, so that translates into it's easier to reach the ground with your feet. And it's got an adjustable seat height of between two settings, and I think pretty much anyone of average height could manage this bike on the tiptoes, because once you get it moving, it's fine. Within 5-6 miles per hour, it feels like it sheds all its weight. It's well balanced, and it's quite an easy bike to handle and muscle about. Now I'm on record as really liking a Triumph Triple. I mean, I've owned two now. I've had a speed triple and I've had this, and I've tried the street triple, which is gorgeous. But this particular iteration of the triple engine, slightly different in its power delivery because it's bigger. It's got somewhere around 135 brake horsepower and something in the region of 90 foot-pounds of torque, which is tons, which is this engine's real strong point, and the thing that makes it a good bike day to day. Because brake horsepower is only good if you're going like really fast, but torque, which this has right down from 2000 RPM right up to 8000 RPM, it's right there, and you can use it to pull away, to ride slowly and ride slowly into high gear. Fantastic for that. Big plus. But it doesn't like being revved anything above 6000, I find, even though the power doesn't really, well, according to the figures, doesn't come into like 8,000+ RPM. There's no point revving it to it, because it just feels like it makes a load more noise but doesn't actually deliver any more power. So short shift it between 4,000 to 6,000 RPM. This is this bike's sweet spot. Really likes it. And it is a big bike, and you'd think that would affect the handling, and of course it does affect the handling. It doesn't steer particularly fast, but for a big beast, it carries its weight well, and even on the stock Torrance tyres, which I've just swapped out from, it would grip the road really well. The only thing I've found with the handling is that if you sit on it normally and try and go fast into a corner, like let's see, I'll try and do here now. So you're leaning the bike over quite a way, it just feels a little bit kind of wallowy in the mid corner, but that completely can be obliterated by the simple application of a little bit of weight shift. So as you come into this right hander here, hard brakes, weight right over the side, oop, touch my foot down, power out of the corner, and that bit of weight shift really does, it's like turning on and off a switch. It goes from mediocre handling to fantastic. You feel a bit weird doing it on such a big bike, but my god does it help. It really does. And anyone who's ever ridden one of these, who's never tried, or owns one of these, who's never tried to do that in a corner, learn proper track sort of, and I'm not talking like getting your head right down and trying to get your knee down, just get a little bit of your bum cheek off the saddle into the way you're turning, head and shoulders out to the side, and you watch how that transforms the handling of this bike. It's a big thing, and what it really does seem to like to be ridden fast and hard in the twisty stuff is you've got to grab it by its big thick muscular neck and make it have it. Really sort of like trust it and just make it, you are the boss of this bike, make it your bitch. You are riding it, it is not riding you. And that's where, yeah, a novice could potentially get on this bike. Someone who's moving up from, say, a 500, who's got a couple of 100 miles on a 500, who wants to move up into a touring bike, yeah, you could ride this, no problem. The power delivery, the torque, it's all very smooth. It would not surprise you. You wouldn't come unstuck. Yeah, anyone could ride it with just a little bit of experience, but it really does favour a more advanced rider, this bike. It really does enjoy being man-handled or woman-handled, because you need to be confident about shifting your weight and using counter steer. Do all that, man, this bike handles surprisingly well. So much so that I have embarrassed people on sports bikes while out having a bit of a Sunday ride on it. It's, you know, and that's on stock dual sport tyres, and I rode those tyres until they were like dead, and I was still up in Scotland losing my mate on his Thundercat 600, which is the pre-runner to the R6, and I was leaving him for dead on worn, knackered tyres, because it is quite a softly sprung bike and it's a bit bouncy. You get lots of feedback through the road. Fantastic, and that's what you want for road riding. It's alright on track having a super solid suspension setup, which this will never have anyway, but because you know what the surface conditions are like, you know what the corners are, you learn them, so you know when the suspension's going to work and when it's not. But on a road that you ride infrequently, you know, it always changes, so you need that little bit of feedback coming back at you through the saddle. Really ride this thing by the seat of your pants. It loves it and it will reward you for it. Now, on the suspension side of things, this is a 2015 one, so it's 2016 they had the semi-active suspension and all that added. Now, I'm sure the semi-active suspension is fantastic, and it must be really good to be able to adjust the suspension characteristics on the fly, i.e. adjust for pillion, adjust for luggage and pillion. I've got to do that with sort of preload adjusters on the front and back. Well, I just tend to do the back personally, but anyway. But I have no complaints whatsoever about the suspension on this bike. It soaks up the bumps, it's got nice long travel. So the extra money that I would have had to pay for a 2016 one just didn't make sense to me, because for what I do, and for what anyone does really, no one needs semi-active suspension. It's just kind of nice to have, but without it you're not losing out, you know, which is why I got such a good deal on this bike over the 2016 one, because this was surplus stock and I got a good deal on it. So yeah, one of the negatives I have about this bike, and it's only negative in respect to how brakes have improved massively over the last 10-15 years. The brakes on this bike are mediocre, front and back. That's about as well as I can describe them. Yes, they will stop you. They will stop you in a timely fashion if need be, but there are quite a, just by looking at them, there are non-radial 4-piston caliper that is the same that they were using on pretty much everything from the Triumph early 675s upwards on this, and this is a big heavy bike, and the brakes really are lacking. One, in initial feel, initial sort of bite, and two, you do have to use a bit of grip strength to get it to stop in a hurry, but it will do it. It will stop in a hurry should you need to. Just a matter of getting used to it. But I know from 2016 they went on to Brembo Brakes, which can only be a good thing. Let's get it right. And I would rather this did have Brembo brakes and an uprated braking system, but it doesn't, and I've just got used to it. It just means that when I get on my R1, oh boy, even with that mediocre brakes, that feels so much better braked. And when I went on the Street Triple RS, a 765, the Brembo brakes on that, wow, that was like hitting a brick wall compared to this. So yeah, so the brakes are mediocre, but they do work. And I've done 11,000 miles on it, and they're still on the stock pads, both front and back, so it doesn't exactly eat them either, and it's stopping a lot of weight. So this is one of those things you get used to. Now, another thing that was upgraded a lot from 2016 was the rider modes and rider aids, the electric rider aids. This 2015 one is rocking a rather agricultural traction control system, to be fair, and at the moment it's not even activated because it was getting on my nerves when I was going up a gravel track to do some camping up in Scotland a few months ago, you know, and one thing you don't want traction control is on, and ABS is on gravel tracks, you know, because that's when you don't mind a bit of a rear wheel spin, it's all part of the fun, whereas it would let the wheel spin a couple of revolutions, then cut in and just kill the engine dead, you know, and then it'd have to sort of build up again, and it was quite annoying. It pissed me off that much that I just switched it off, and yeah, I should have probably switched it back on again for when I've ridden it in the rain, which has been plenty of recently, but I just never did, and I've kind of got used to it now. The ABS on this bike, again, it's not the best. It's got a couple of slight sensitivity settings, but I find that the rear anti-lock brake to be quite annoying, to be honest. If you're hard braking and you're going over the bumps, of which this country has many, you find that just that little moment of weight off the back wheel as it goes over a bump is enough to lock the back wheel up, and then enough to activate the anti-lock. Now if it didn't have the anti-lock, the wheel would have slid about an inch, and then, you know, the natural mechanical grip would have carried it on turning. But with the anti-lock seems to make a big deal of that. It interferes, it basically lets the brake go in a big clunk, and then you get this kind of like oscillation for a couple of seconds as it sorts itself out. Well, not for a couple of seconds, but for a second. So I'm not a big fan of the anti-lock brake on the back. On the front, I've only ever felt it activate going on gravel, and even then it kind of didn't need to, because it wasn't any kind of a slide. It just lost a little bit of grip for a fraction of a second, and it seemed to just sort of like activate a little tiny bit and switch off. So yeah, it's a little bit too intrusive, and it's a bit, you know, I don't know, it kind of feels like it's on there because it kind of has to be on there or something. It wouldn't hurt me if it wasn't on there. And again, I should really turn it off, but I just can't be bothered. I've kind of got used to it. Other nice features that I really do like in this bike, however, is its cruise control, which I wish the switches were on the left hand side. That's the only gripe about that, but it is such a good addition to any bike really, especially one that you're doing distances on. It's just really nice to be able to set it, have it running, and then just even if you don't lift your hand off the right bar, you can just rest and you can unclench your hand, you can just relax and leave it. And it's amazing how it prolongs the comfort of a long ride, because little things like the clenching and the gripping and things like that, it actually does slowly tire you out even though you're not aware of it. But that ability to just be able to really relax one arm or the other, because you can always obviously relax your left arm, but when you can take your right hand off as well, just sit there with it on the tank in front of you while you cover hundreds of miles on a motorway, it's just a real nice thing to have on a touring bike. So much so that it's now pretty much mandatory on any bike that I would want to do distance on. I've got problems with my shoulder which can be affected by long distance riding. The cruise control fixes that, no problem. Like I say, I just wish it was on the left hand side so you could alter the speed and things like that without having to put your hand back on, but nah, got used to it. When I bought this bike, I opted for it to be fitted with heated grips, the hand guards, engine guards, the sump protector, foot pegs, arrow cam, things like that, because I was offered it as a package deal basically. I got, like, for nothing, I got £2,000 worth of accessories that I could just pile on this bike for nothing basically. It was part of just get rid of the 2015 ones for the 2016. Well, yeah, it's a great deal. And of all those options that I've put on, the one basically that is the main improvement of all of them is the heated grips. Superb. Even in relatively warmish weather they're quite good. I find myself using it a lot more than I thought I would. It's odd, you know, just early morning, sometimes a little bit of a nippiness in the air, it just makes life a little bit more comfy. They go from hot, medium and off, and I find that medium is a good setting. Hot will feel hot after a bit. You know, if you take your hand off and a raindrop lands on it, it steams off, so you know there's quite a lot of heat in it. It does have the spotlights on it, but they're more of a fashion accessory really, because it's got really good headlights, casts a lot of light about at dark. You know, so yeah, the twin spots, well, the fog lights that I've got on it, yeah, they're all right, but if I wasn't getting them for free I probably wouldn't put them on. But the bad side, I think, of all these dealer options is just that with Triumph, Triumph and BMW are absolutely notorious for it, and Yamaha are similar, and I suppose all bike manufacturers are, is the aftermarket dealer options that you can throw at these things. Now, yeah, you don't have to buy them, But what kind of annoys me is that they will take, almost as if they take something off a bike to sell it you back again. At this price point, I think this bike should come with heated grips on it. Shouldn't be an option, it should just come with it. I think the same way that the BMW does, if not mistaken. But the biggest one that grinds my gears is the comfort seat. Why not just make a seat that's comfortable instead of a seat that you have to buy that's comfortable? A seat should be comfortable, and it is noticeably more comfortable than the stock seat. I can't imagine for a couple of seconds that the comfort seat costs any more to make. It's just different construction, and if it did, it's not going to be a great amount of money just to stick it on there and have it as a option. It's not even an option, just have it as a stock seat, because it is much more comfortable. But other than that, everything else on the bike is absolutely fine. Build quality I have found to be excellent. There's no corrosion on it, apart from a small amount of pitting at the bottom of the fork tubes, which is obviously being caused by the pooling at the bottom where the front fender sort of wraps around the bottom of the forks, and it's allowing a bit of water to pool there. I found it, cleaned it off, it's not a problem. The forks have never been down that far anyway, so I'm not going to abrade any seals on it, but it's just the very beginnings of some pitting on the bottom of the fork legs. But everywhere else is absolutely spotless, and I have ridden this in some proper torrential rain too. Last week in Scotland was properly torrential, but didn't diminish from the fun of the bike at all, because you do get a lot of protection from the screen, which, given the nature of it, I've had to modify it with this little Puig extender. But I think in this day and age of different sized people riding different sized bikes, you can't make a one size fits all screen. So that's just one of those things that nothing much you can do about that. A short guy wouldn't want it to be too tall because he'd be looking through it, and the tall guy, he's looking over it but doesn't want it too, he wants it higher up, which would be no good for a short guy. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of tailoring in the wind department, but otherwise it's fine. The wind protection's great. This tank down here just protects all your legs. Even without waterproof trousers on your legs, don't get wet when you're moving at speed. It's great. And that's pretty much really all I've got to say about it. It's all good, it is. And one of the reasons why I've been thinking about this bike and what's inspired me to do this bit of a long-term roundup of what it's like is, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I have talked a little bit about my strategy going forward, possibly going to a one bike situation. And especially after last week's tour around Scotland, around the Highlands on this thing, I don't want to sell this bike. It's just too damn useful to me. I know that if I was to get rid of this, I would regret it. And I'd wish I'd had it back. Because on a long distance touring holiday or journey, this thing rocks. It's comfy, it's quick, it's torquey, it handles really well, so you can go on a long trip somewhere with the Givey luggage on, which I have, drop the luggage when you get there, and you're back to a nice handling bike again without all the weight. Well, without all the weight of luggage, it's already got enough of its own bloody weight. Yeah, it's not going to be as good a handling as, say, a Multistrada or an S1000 XR, but they're many thousands of pounds more expensive than this, and they are not many thousands of pounds better. Trust me, I've ridden both. Well, I've ridden Multistrada certainly. So yeah, I would recommend this bike even after 2 years of ownership and 11,000 miles to anyone who wants a bike for doing long distances on, in comfort, in relative good value, and who still wants a bike which, if needs be, can get on it and shift with just a little twist of the throttle, who wants to be able to ride it in town. It filters well, albeit the bars are a little bit wide, but with a little bit of you know, resolve. You can filter quite well on this. It handles well at low speeds. The fueling's really good. It doesn't have any problems with hunting or surging. The throttle response is a little quick. The throttle, the action of it is a little. It feels like maybe it could be a little stiffer almost, because it has got such an easy to sort of twist throttle. You know, and that once you get used to it, it's fine. But initially, it kind of feels a bit odd. See, filtering, no problem. So you really could have this as a day-to-day bike. If you're the kind of person who likes big, heavy, touring sort of dual sport bikes, and you're looking to, I don't know, you're looking for something that's a little bit different from the usual twin cylinder GS's and V-twins, things like that, then this, you know, it's got all the character. Build quality's good, the engine feels nice, handles really well, it's all there. Say brakes could be better, but yeah. And one of the only very few gripes I have is it's quite a difficult bike to clean because it's got lots of little nooks and crannies on it, but you can work around that. So you can look forward to many more videos from me and the Triumph Tiger Explorer, who I've affectionately named Richard Parker, because I think I'm going to be keeping the big cat, I really do. It just feels right, and after 2 years and 11,000 miles it still feels like a fun, good bike to ride. So that's obviously going to affect any sort of decisions I might make next spring, but me and the Tiger, we're going to be staying together, I think. Oh yes. If you've any questions about the Tiger or anything else for that matter, please feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer every single one, and until I see you next time, that'll be a big see you later. Try and keep it shiny side up with what's left of the riding season, everyone, and I will catch you again. Bye bye.